Rule 1 by Philtown. Introduction. It was 1980. The sun beat down on the Grand Canyon, carving shadows into ancient rock walls. Deep within its heart, a small paddleboat was being pulled, slowly but surely, toward a monstrous rapid known as Crystal. On board were 6 wealthy trustees from the Outward Bound program, and their river guide, a young man named Philtown. Phil was about as far from Wall Street as you could get. He was a former Green Beret who'd come home from Vietnam to a country that seemed to despise him. He'd drifted, living in a teepee near Flagstaff, Arizona, riding a loud Harley-Davidson, and making a meager living doing things that got his hands dirty. He was guiding this trip down the canyon, and now, he was in trouble. Crystal wasn't just any rapid. It was a churning vortex, a place where 80,000 cubic feet of water per second smashed into a granite wall, creating a recirculating hole that could swallow a boat whole. Phil had always snuck past it, but this time was different. His crew of powerful executives, used to giving orders, weren't paddling effectively. They were drifting backward, straight for the hole. Panic set in. He screamed at them to paddle harder, telling them their lives depended on it. Nothing. They were exhausted, banging paddles against each other. In a flash, Phil saw their faces crushed against the cliff before being sucked into the abyss. In a last, desperate move, he pointed the boat toward a tiny seam of water, a long shot, and screamed for them to paddle toward the edge of the hole as hard as they could. Something clicked. Maybe they finally saw the end. The boat flew. They skidded along the very lip of the vortex, staring down into it like mice looking into a running washing machine. And then, they were through. They didn't even get wet. Later that night, around a campfire, one of the men, a self-made millionaire Phil calls the Wolf, wrapped him in a bear hug, his eyes full of emotion. "How can I thank you for saving my life?" he asked. Phil was hoping for a big cash reward. Instead, the Wolf offered him something else entirely. He said, "Feed a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime." He was going to teach this long-haired river guide how to invest. He was going to teach him a secret. A simple rule that would take him from earning $4,000 a year to becoming a millionaire in just 5 years. What I'm going to share with you today is that very secret. It's a strategy so simple, it can be done in just 15 minutes a week. It's a method that promises returns of 15% or more, with almost no risk, and it's virtually immune to the ups and downs of the stock market. This is the story of Philtown's book, Rule 1, and by the end of our time together, you will understand the simple, powerful truth that Wall Street doesn't want you to know. That you, right now, have everything it takes to build true, lasting wealth, and you don't need their permission to start. Book summary. Let me ask you something. When you think about the stock market, what comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's a casino. A high-stakes game of chance where you might get lucky, but you're more likely to lose your shirt. You hear stories about people losing half their life savings in a downturn, and you think, that's not for me. It's too risky. So what do? We hand our hard-earned money over to the experts, the mutual fund managers who promise to navigate these treacherous waters for us. We put our faith, and our retirement, in their hands. And here is the great, heartbreaking lie that the entire financial industry is built on. They can't do it either. Let me tell you a secret. Since 1985, only 4% of all the fund managers in America have managed to beat the average market return, the S&P 500. Let that sink in. 96% of the highly paid professionals, the so-called experts, fail to do the one job they are paid to do. In fact, as Philtown points out, a few years ago a monkey was hired to pick stocks by throwing darts at a newspaper. For 2 years in a row, he beat the best fund managers in New York. Think about that. You could have lost 50% of your money between 2000 and 2003 all by yourself, without paying a professional for the privilege. The truth is, the financial world wants you to feel scared. It wants you to feel like investing is a complex science, like brain surgery, best left to the professionals. They want you to believe three great myths. The first myth is that you have to be an expert to manage your own money. The second is that you can't beat the market. And the third, the one you hear everywhere, is that the safest way to invest is to diversify and hold for the long term. But what if I told you that for 60 out of the last 100 years, a diversified, buy and hold portfolio would have earned you a grand total of 0%? 60 years. Entire lifetimes where your money went absolutely nowhere. This is the trap. The trap of mediocrity. The trap of trusting people who don't care about your money nearly as much as you do. Phil Town learned this from the wolf, who in turn learned it from the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett. And Buffett learned it from his teacher, Benjamin Graham. It's a timeless piece of wisdom, passed down from mentor to student. And it all boils down to one simple idea, known as Rule 1. According to Warren Buffett, there are only two rules of investing. Rule 1 is, don't lose money, and Rule 2 is, don't forget Rule 1. Now, that might sound overly simple, maybe even a little timid. But it's the most powerful investment philosophy in the world. Because the key to compounding money at a massive rate isn't about hitting home runs. It's about never, ever getting sent back to the start. A 50% drop in your portfolio requires a 100% gain just to get back to where you started. Most people experience this kind of devastating loss at some point. A Rule 1 investor never does. So, how do we invest with a near certainty that we won't lose money? The answer is the heart of this entire book. It's a phrase you need to memorize, to write down, to carry with you. Certainty comes from buying a wonderful business at an attractive price. That's it. That's the whole game. We're not buying stocks. We are not buying little flashing ticker symbols on a screen. We are becoming the silent owners of wonderful businesses. And we're only going to buy them when they're on a massive sale. We're going to buy $1 of value for 50 cents. To do this, Phil Town gives us a simple, 4-step checklist. He calls it the 4 M's. If you can answer a resounding yes to all 4 of these questions about a company, you found an investment that can change your life. The first M is meaning. This is where it all begins, and it has nothing to do with numbers or spreadsheets. It starts with you. Does this business have meaning to you? Do you understand it? Would you be proud to own the entire company? If you were told that this single business had to be the sole financial support for your family for the next 100 years, would you feel comfortable? This is a profound question. It forces you to stop thinking like a gambler and start thinking like an owner. If you think a company is exploiting people or harming the world, don't own it. Your money is your vote for the kind of world you want to see. This first step immediately simplifies the entire universe of stocks. You don't have to understand biotech or complex software companies. Warren Buffett famously avoids technology stocks because he says he doesn't understand them. What do you understand? What are you passionate about? Where do you spend your money? Phil suggests a simple exercise. Draw 3 intersecting circles. In the first, write down everything you have a passion for. In the second, everything you have a talent for. And in the third, everything you spend money on. The industries and companies that appear in 2 or all 3 of those circles are your starting point. If you love cars, start there. If you're a teacher, look at education companies. If you're a parent who spends a fortune on kids' clothes, you probably know more about that industry than most Wall Street analysts. This is your circle of competence. And a Rule 1 investor never, ever steps outside of it. Because if you don't understand the business, you can't possibly predict its future. And if you can't predict its future, you can't know what it's worth. And if you don't know what it's worth, you're not investing. You're gambling. Once you have a list of businesses that have meaning to you, you move to the second M, moat. Imagine a beautiful, strong castle. A wonderful business is like that castle. But a castle, no matter how strong, is vulnerable to attack if it's not protected. That protection is the moat. The moat is a company's durable competitive advantage. It's the thing that keeps competitors at bay and allows the business to thrive for decades. There are 5 kinds of moats. First, there's a brand moat. Think of Coca-Cola. You can buy a generic cola for half the price, but when you want a Coke, you want a Coke. People trust the brand, and they're willing to pay more for it. Harley-Davidson has a brand moat. You can buy a technically better motorcycle for less money, but it doesn't sound like a Harley, it doesn't feel like a Harley, and it doesn't command the same respect. Second is a secret moat. This could be a patent, like a pharmaceutical company has on a new drug, or a trade secret, like the formula for Coke. It's something that makes it illegal or nearly impossible for competitors to copy what you do. Third is a toll moat. Imagine you own the only bridge across a river. Anyone who wants to cross has to pay you a toll. A local utility company has a toll moat. If you want electricity in your city, you have to buy it from them. Fourth is a switching moat. This is when a product is so integrated into your life that the hassle of switching to a competitor just isn't worth it. Microsoft has a massive switching moat. Even if a better operating system comes along, the pain of moving all your files and learning a new system is too great for most people. And fifth is a price moat. This belongs to companies that can price their products so low that nobody can compete. Think Walmart or Costco. Their sheer scale allows them to operate with ruthless efficiency, and smaller competitors simply can't survive. A wonderful business will have at least one of these big, wide moats. But a feeling isn't enough. A moat isn't just a story, it's a reality that shows up in a company's numbers. This is where we look at what Phil calls the big 5 numbers. Now, don't let your eyes glaze over. This is simpler than it sounds. These 5 numbers are the vital signs of a company's health. We're looking for just one thing: consistency. We want to see each of these numbers growing at more than 10% per year, on average, for the last 10 years. The first, and most important, is return on investment capital ROIC. This tells you how good the company is at taking a dollar and turning it into more dollars. A business with a great moat almost always has a high ROIC because it doesn't have to constantly fight on price. If this number isn't consistently above 10%, walk away. The other 4 are growth rates: sales growth, earnings per share EPS growth, equity or book value growth, and free cash flow growth. You don't need to be a math whiz. Today, you can find these numbers for free on websites like MSN Money or Yahoo Finance. You're just looking for nice, straight, upward trending lines. Are the sales growing consistently? Is the profit per share growing? Is the company's net worth growing? Is it generating more and more spare cash? If the answer is yes across the board, you've likely found a business with a very powerful moat. This brings us to the third M, management. You can have the greatest business in the world, but if the wrong person is at the helm, it can be steered straight into an iceberg. When we invest, we are betting on the jockey at least as much as the horse. We are looking for what business researcher Jim Collins calls a level 5 leader. These are people who are incredibly driven, but their ambition is for the company, not for themselves. They are owner-oriented. How do you spot one? First, read their annual letters to shareholders. Do they talk like a politician, full of vague jargon and buzzwords? Or do they speak plainly and honestly? A great CEO takes responsibility when things go wrong and gives credit to the team when things go right. Warren Buffett starts his annual letter by telling shareholders how they performed against the market, and if they fell short, he explains exactly why it was his fault. Second, look at their compensation. Are they paying themselves an outrageous salary while the company struggles? Or is their pay reasonable, with their real wealth tied up in owning the company's stock, just like you? Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer of Microsoft famously never took stock options, stating that their personal interests were already directly aligned with shareholders because the vast majority of their net worth was in Microsoft stock. Third, check insider trading. Are the top executives consistently selling off large chunks of their own stock? That's a massive red flag. There are many reasons an insider might sell, but there's only one reason they buy in droves: they believe the price is going up. If you can find a business that has meaning, a wide moat confirmed by the Big Five numbers, and a great owner-oriented management team, you have found a truly wonderful business. You've done 75% of the work. But you are not ready to buy. Not yet. Because the most wonderful business in the world can be a terrible investment if you pay too much for it. This brings us to the fourth and final M, the one that protects you from everything: margin of safety, MOS. This is where we meet Mr. Market. Benjamin Graham created this wonderful analogy. Imagine you have a business partner named Mr. Market. The good news is, every single day, he comes to you and offers to either buy your shares in the business or sell you his, at a price he names. The bad news is, your partner is manic depressive. Some days, he's euphoric. He sees a glorious future, and he offers to sell you his shares at a ridiculously high price. Other days, he's in the depths of despair. He's convinced the world is ending, and he's willing to sell you his shares for pennies on the dollar just to get out. Your job as an investor is simple: ignore him on his normal days, sell to him when he's euphoric, and buy from him with open arms when he is terrified. To do that, you must know what the business is actually worth, independent of Mr. Market's crazy mood swings. This true worth is what Phil calls the sticker price. Think of it like buying a car. You wouldn't walk into a dealership and just pay whatever the salesperson asks. You'd do your research. You'd know the sticker price. A business is no different. The sticker price is its true, rational value. The price is what Mr. Market is asking today. They are rarely the same thing. So, how do we calculate the sticker price? This is the moment where most people get intimidated, but the process is surprisingly simple. We need 4 pieces of information, all of which are easily found online. First, we need the company's current earnings per share, EPS. That's just the profit per share. Second, we need an estimated future EPS growth rate. This is the number we get from our Big Five analysis. We look at the historical growth rates, especially the equity growth rate, and we also look at what professional analysts are projecting. Then we pick a conservative number that we're confident the business can sustain. Third, we need an estimated future PE ratio. The PE ratio is just a multiple that the market is willing to pay for a company's earnings. A simple rule of thumb is to take the growth rate and double it. So a company growing at 15% a year will likely have a PE ratio of around 30. We also look at the company's historical average PE and, again, we choose the more conservative of the two numbers. And fourth, we need our minimum acceptable rate of return. For a Rule 1 investor, this is always 15%. With these numbers, we can paint a picture of the future. We take the current EPS and grow it by our estimated growth rate for 10 years. This gives us the future EPS. We multiply that future EPS by our future PE ratio, and that gives us the future stock price in 10 years. Now for the final step. If we know what the stock will be worth in 10 years, what should we pay for it today to get a 15% annual return? There's a handy shortcut called the Rule of 72. At 15%, your money doubles about every 5 years. So, over 10 years, it will double twice. Doubling twice is the same as quadrupling. So, to find today's sticker price, we simply take that future price from 10 years out and divide it by 4. That number is the sticker price. That's what the business is worth. But we do not buy it at the sticker price. We are Rule 1 investors. We demand a margin of safety. Our buying price, our MOS price, is 50% of the sticker price. If a wonderful business has a sticker price of $80, we wait patiently until Mr. Market, in a fit of panic, offers it to us for $40. When that happens, we buy. This margin of safety is your ultimate protection. If you made a mistake in your calculations, your margin protects you. If the company hits an unexpected rough patch, your margin protects you. If the whole market goes down, your margin protects you. It is the bedrock of investing with certainty. Now, there's one last piece to this puzzle. A final fear that can creep in. What if you do all this work, you find a wonderful company, you buy it at a 50% discount, and the price still goes down? It can happen. Mr. Market can go from depressed to suicidal. This is where Philtown gives us our final, and perhaps most powerful, advantage. He says it's time to grab the stick. You see, the market isn't driven by logic or reason in the short term. It's driven by the movement of massive amounts of money, controlled by institutional funds, the mutual funds, pension funds, and insurance companies. They control over 80% of the market. When they buy, prices go up. When they sell, prices go down. But here's their weakness: they're like giant cruise ships. It takes them weeks or even months to build a position in a stock or to get out of one. You and I, on the other hand, are like little speedboats. We can get in or out in seconds. What if we could see which way those cruise ships were starting to turn? Well, we can. There are 3 simple, free tools available on any financial website that track the flow of this big money. Phil calls them the 3 tools: the MACD, the stochastics, and the moving average. You don't need to understand the complex math behind them. You just need to learn how to read their signals, like reading a traffic light. The MACD is a momentum indicator that shows you when the big money is starting to flow into a stock or out of it. The stochastic tells you when a stock has been oversold driven down by fear or overbought driven up by greed. And the moving average smooths out the daily price wiggles to show you the true, underlying trend. Here's the rule: when your homework is done, and a wonderful business is selling at or below your MOS price, you wait for one more thing. You wait for all 3 of these tools to flash a green light, a buy signal. This tells you that the big institutions are starting to move in. So you get in right alongside them, at the beginning of the wave. Then, you simply check these tools for a few minutes each week. You hold the stock as it rises. At some point, the big guys will decide to take their profits and start quietly selling. The tools will see this movement and flash a red light, a sell signal. When all 3 tools tell you to get out, you get out. No emotion. No second guessing. You sell, take your profit, and put that wonderful company back on your watch list, waiting for the next time Mr. Market panics and offers you another great price. Let me give you a real example from the book. In early 2003, Doug and Susan Connolly, a couple in their late 40s with only $20,000 saved for retirement, decided to try Rule 1. They loved restaurants, so they started there. They analyzed the Cheesecake Factory. It had meaning. It had a strong brand moat. The big five numbers were fantastic, with growth rates over 20%. Management was led by the founder, a man who clearly loved the business. They calculated the sticker price to be around $44 a share. Their MOS price was $22. And at that moment, Mr. Market was selling it for just over $18. They checked the three tools, and all three were screaming buy. They put their $20,000 in. By using the tools to get in and out with the big money over the next 2 years, and by adding $500 a month from their savings, their $20,000 grew to $78,000. A 56% compounded annual return. They transformed their financial future. Instead of facing a scary retirement in 20 years, they were now on a path to retire comfortably in just 10. That is the power of this strategy. It's not about genius or luck. It's about discipline. It's about patience. And it's about having the courage to ignore the noise and follow a simple set of rules. It is a path to financial freedom that is open to anyone willing to learn. You start by learning, you practice on paper, and when you are certain, you take your first, small, confident step. You buy your first wonderful business when it's on sale, and you begin your journey. Commentary. When you really boil it down, Phil Town's Rule 1 isn't just a book about investing. It's a book about reclaiming power. It's a declaration of independence from a financial system that has, for decades, told the average person, you can't. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough time. Just give us your money, and we'll take care of you. And for years, we believed it. We funneled our life savings into mutual funds managed by people who, as the data overwhelmingly shows, can't even match the performance of a dart-throwing monkey. We accepted mediocre returns, paid exorbitant fees, and watched in helpless fear as our retirement accounts were cut in half during market downturns. We were passengers in our own financial lives. What Phil Town does so brilliantly is walk over, hand you the keys to the car, and say, it's your turn to drive. He demystifies the process, stripping away the jargon and the complexity until all that's left is a beautifully simple, common-sense framework. The ideas here aren't new. They are the time-tested principles of Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett. But what is new is the accessibility. The idea that a regular person, a teacher, a river guide, a stay-at-home parent, can apply these principles with the help of modern tools is revolutionary. The most profound lesson, for me, is the shift in identity that the book demands. You stop seeing yourself as a stock picker and start seeing yourself as a business buyer. That single change in perspective changes everything. A stock picker chases tips and rumors. A business buyer studies quality and value. A stock picker asks, what will the price be tomorrow? A business buyer asks, will this company be thriving in 20 years? The 4 M's provide such a wonderfully complete filter for making decisions. It starts with your heart meaning, moves to the business's competitive strength moat, then to its leadership management, and finally, to the price margin of safety. It forces you to be holistic. You can't just find a cheap company, it has to be a wonderful company. And you can't just find a wonderful company, it has to be cheap. If there's one idea to take away that will protect you for the rest of your life, it is the margin of safety. It is the ultimate humility. It's the acknowledgement that the future is uncertain and that we can be wrong. Demanding a 50% discount isn't about being greedy, it's about being prudent. It builds in such a massive cushion that even if your growth projections are off, even if the company stumbles, you still have a high probability of not losing money. And not losing money, as Rule 1 states, is the whole game. So, how do you start applying this today? First, don't rush to invest a single dollar. Your first investment should be in your own education. Start by doing the 3 circles exercise. What industries are you already an expert in without even realizing it? Make a list of companies in those fields. This is your initial shopping list. Second, start practicing. Pick one of those companies and walk it through the 4 M's, just as we discussed. Go to MSN Money or Yahoo Finance and look up its Big 5 numbers. Read the CEO's letter in the annual report. Calculate a rough sticker price using the rule of 72. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to get your hands dirty. And finally, start paper trading. Open a notebook or a spreadsheet and pretend to invest. Follow the 3 tools. See what it feels like to buy and sell based on signals, not emotions. Do this until you feel a deep, unshakable confidence in the process. When you feel more regret about the profits you missed on paper than fear about the money you might lose, you'll know you are ready. That was a summary of Rule 1 by Philtown. We've touched on the core principles today, but there's a world of difference between knowing the path and walking the path. A summary can give you a map, but the real journey begins when you open the book yourself. It's in the detailed examples, the nuances, and the way a particular story connects with your own experience that true understanding is born. This overview is your invitation to see if this book's journey is one you want to take. If anything we've discussed today sparked a light within you, I encourage you to pick up a copy. The link is in the description. Reading it isn't just an act of learning, it's an act of empowerment that can fundamentally change your relationship with money and your future. Also, if this journey through Rule 1 has been valuable to you, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and keep growing together.